Hey, welcome back to the Cyber Docket. In this section, we're going to be looking into some examples of phishing attempts so you can maybe get a better idea of what to look out for. There are tons of different types of phishing attempts, different styles, and how they approach you, but we're going to try and cover some of the most basic ones. Let's begin. Our first example we will be looking at is an email where the hacker attempts to pretend they are PayPal. The feature they'll be using is a sense of urgency. Let's see why. One big aspect of phishing is that it's usually attempted through falsified emails. The example we have here with PayPal is known as the tech support scam, where these emails attempt to coerce information from a user by appearing as though it is a legitimate email from a company or website the person uses. Some ways they really grab your attention is with subject lines titled "Unusual activity in your account" or "Response required." Now if we look up top, we can see that our subject is "Your recent transactions have been declined." I just circled that there. The emails also come from email accounts with long strings of random characters or names that really don't make sense. Hovering over your mouse to see who the email is from is a real way to see if the email is legit or not. Now let's take a look at this email. We can see up top that they're acting as PayPal, but look at this email address right here. This is not really a PayPal email address and should catch your eye. Notice how realistic this email looks from PayPal. It's almost identical to one that they would send you, and I guarantee you clicking that button will return you to a homepage that looks exactly like theirs. This is the way they really fool you, and this is why you need to be so precautious when receiving emails. Also, if you are receiving an email, be very wary where you are putting your information and triple check that if you're putting your information somewhere, it's legitimate. Our next example, we'll be looking at how hackers are able to use social media into getting you. This delivery method is through Facebook Messenger, where they're acting as just a random user, and YouTube. Future includes hyperlinks and an unusual sender. We'll see why now. As we see here, people exploit social media in their phishing attempts to get you to click on links they want you to. This user is sent an image from a random person that they are not friends with. The image displayed right now shows someone receiving an SVG file. The SVG is the file type sent. These are usually the file extensions, and you can see them at the end of the name of the photo. Things like JPEG and PNG are mostly for pictures. Most social media websites have a filter to prevent malicious files from getting sent, but some do not. If you see a file extension that is really not familiar to you, I would be very hesitant in clicking. Now let's see where this link takes us. Clicking the link will take you to this page where you are asked to install an extension on Google Chrome in order to watch a YouTube video. However, although the YouTube page looks pretty legitimate, look at the address up top. And it's the same with email addresses, where you always have to verify if where you are is where you think you are. Circling this address, we see that this is not YouTube's page. This should be your warning number 1. Also, make note of how installing an extension to watch a YouTube video is pretty weird. When have you ever needed to do that before? These are things that you should always be wary of when you're doing things on the internet. If something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't, and you should always be on the defensive side of things. In our next example, the hacker will be using LinkedIn to deliver the malicious file. They will be acting as your bank account and will be creating a sense of urgency, as we will see why. This image is pretty similar to the email examples that we saw earlier, except this one was sent to someone's LinkedIn. As you can see, it's already strange enough to get a message from your bank account on LinkedIn. This should be a red flag number 1. Instead of some other personal way, the bank is attempting to verify their online key through LinkedIn. The link is also a flag. Notice in the link, it doesn't even go to wellsfargo.com. We could see this on the next when we click the image, but also make note of the link how it does not go to the correct address. Let's see where this takes us. Clicking the link will redirect you to this web page acting as Wells Fargo, where they're asking you for a bunch of different information about yourself. Let's see if we can catch some red flags though. Right off the bat, we see that the URL does not really make any sense. If they're Wells Fargo, why is this their URL? That's red flag number one. Next, notice how the font and the size of username and password are different from anything else. Web pages like Wells Fargo wouldn't have that type of discrepancies in their font sizes and input forms. And lastly, you want to ask yourself, when have you ever been asked to input all this information online? This Wells Fargo website is asking you to put your driver's license number, credit card number, social security, email address, email password, and it's not even asking you to do this after you put in your password. This all just doesn't make any sense. These are why this hacker is just being selfish and wants too much. Let's look at our next example. The delivery method again will be an email, but they will be acting as your boss as your place of employment. And the future again will be a sense of urgency. Let's see why. This one is really tricky to catch as well. In this example, an employee was emailed by the CEO of the company she works at. She was asked to wire some of the company's money for an international payment. Also, many times in these sorts of emails, other employees will be CC'd so the email seems to appear more realistic. She initially replied, but in this situation, she thought it was sort of strange behavior from the CEO to be receiving this email and alerted her IT department about it immediately. It turned out that the CEO's email address was actually compromised. This is really hard to identify, but strange behavior and identifying it is vital to not be taken advantage of online. We just looked at some static examples and common techniques that a hacker will use to gain information on you. But now I want to show you some real examples that I found in my email address. Let's look at them right now. Now we're over in my email where I've labeled 4 different examples of a phishing attempt that I've received in just this last month. Let's look at the first one. Here at the title, we see, last notice, claim your free 6 months of Netflix. Wow, that seems pretty good. But as we scroll down, we see a little bit of red flags. The first thing I notice is that this Netflix isn't really centered. Look at all this space over here. Look at all this space over here. Now, it might seem silly, but a real company wouldn't do this or make this type of mistake. Next, as we already talked about, look at the address this is being sent from. Does this seem like Netflix.com? It's not. And we see that there's no security encryption, just another thing that Google helps us out with. So this doesn't really make any sense to me. Also, the last thing to note, this email address I'm using doesn't even have a Netflix account. So I'm not sure how I would be claiming my last free 6 months of Netflix when I don't even have one. Let's go over to our next example where we see an email from Sprint. Now the subject says, Joseph, don't miss out on these fire Apple deals. Right off the bat, my name's not Joseph, it's John. Let's click it. This one looks pretty good. The resolution is a little low. I can't really see that many things wrong with it at first glance, but again, hovering over the links will show that this is spam. Now this sprint at sprint.delivery.net might seem legitimate because it just has sprint and .net in it, but this .delivery is a dead giveaway. This is not Sprint's actual website. Also, by hovering over, we see that these links are extremely long and confusing. Sprint wouldn't do that, and this is something that we should really be watching out for. Let's see our third example, where we have a confirmation order from Amazon. Again, this is the first red flag. This email address I'm using isn't even linked to an Amazon account, so I'm not sure why I would be receiving this email. Let's click it, and yeah, this logo is not even correct. If the crudely designed logo was not a dead giveaway, this is not legit. Let's look at some other examples. It says, "Dear client, thank you for your order. Instant Pot 7-in-1 Crockpot." I do not remember ordering a crockpot, so this is another example of how bad this email really is. And we can see at the top, it's asking me to translate it from Filipino. I'm not sure why it's asking that, but yeah, this is not really legit. The last thing I want to mention, in this very, very small print, let me zoom in, says, "This email is sent to vera.bartlett85. I'm not sure who that is, but that's not me. Real quick, let's look at our last example from Miss Maria Johnson. And she's giving me a payment of $39 million to the beneficiary email ID. You have won C, blah, blah. I'm not even going to read this. Obviously, this is a fake email because, first off, why would I be receiving $39 million? The grammar is not correct. As we can see, this capital P is not capital. And this email address just really doesn't make any sense. Not a .com, not a .net, and this is fishy. Although this amount is very, very high, sometimes they will get you with smaller amounts such as $1,000 or $2,000. Again, no one's really giving you free money on the internet. They're probably asking for information and will steal it.